Hey Chaver, was machst du? What's going on? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Pei Zayin, Daf 87 of Masechta Ayruvin. Chaver, you remember the other week, we started off the shir with, I was very nervous about something that was coming. Well, that was Daf Pei Zayin. So, we're learning it today. How exciting. Al Koponim. L'maisa, it's not too bad. At the beginning, it's a little bit technical. Look, l'maisa, the best thing would be if you have like an art scroll or something with diagrams to follow along with that. So we talk about some interesting good achis configurations. We talk about a canal of water that passes through a chatzer, a canal of water that's under windows, and all sorts of other balcony kind of things. However, let's get started. We're going to start on Daf Pei Vav Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabba, says Rabba, Rabbi Yehuda Reb Chananya ben Akavya Amud Aver Echad, that Rabbi Yehuda and Reb Chananya say very similar things, i.e., they both have kulas, they both have leniencies when it comes to dealing with walls and water. Rabbi Yehuda Hada Amaran. So Rabbi Yehuda's leniency is that which we said in our Mishnah. What do we say in our Mishnah? That according to Rabbi Yehuda, when you have a pit of water, so the wall that separates, right, we were talking about yesterday, a pit of water that is between two hatzeirs. It's split in half between two hatzeirs. So it says Rabbi Yehuda that the wall itself doesn't have to go into the pit or anything like that, just the wall itself that divides the two hatzeirs and goes over the pit, that is enough to divide up the pit, and you can draw water from, each chutzner can draw water from the pit. So we see, right, along the lines of kalu sheikelu chacham b'mayim, that one of the leniencies when it comes to water is that this wall, you don't have to make the wall into the pit itself, as long as it goes over the pit, it's enough. Reb Chananya ben Akavya, the Tanya, as we learn in the Brayso, Reb Chananya ben Akavya, Omer says Reb Chananya ben Akavya, Gzuz tira sheish ba arba amis al arba amis chokek ba dalid al dalid umimali. Who could tell me what that means? Alright, I'll tell you. So, it means a gzuz tira. If you have a balcony, okay? And this balcony is 4 amos by 4 amos, right? Not tfachim. 4 amos by 4 amos. Now 1 amma is 6 tfachim. So 4 amos is 24 tfachim. So you have this balcony, and it's 24 tfachim by 24 tfachim. Now, it's above water, so you want to put a hole in the middle of the balcony so that you could drop a bucket through that hole into the water below and draw it up to where you are. So says Reb Chananya ben Akavya, that, so it's written inside, Gzuzur sheyesh ba arba amis al arba amis. So if you have this balcony that's 24 tfachim by 24 tfachim, chokek ba dalid al dalid, so you can make a hole in the middle of this balcony that's 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. Now chevre, if you have a balcony that's 24 tfachim by 24 tfachim, and in the middle you cut out a square that is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, that means that on every side now, there is basically 10 amis, 10 tfachim from the edge of the square to the edge of the balcony, right? Imagine a square that's 24 by 24, and in the middle, you draw another square that's 4 by 4. So then, from the edge of each square to the edge of the outer square is going to be 10 tfachim. Now, 10 tfachim, of course, is a wall. So, is like the minimum size of a wall. So, Reb Chananya ben Akavya's chiddush is that if you have this balcony that's flat, and it's 4 amas by 4 amas, right? 24 tfachim by 24 tfachim, you can put a hole in the middle of it that's 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, and then you'll basically now have a square, a larger square with a smaller square in the middle, and surrounding the square on all of the sides is basically wood or whatever it is that's 10 tfachim long on every side, and we can view it as though it's called kof, right? What was it, kof? Yeah, that you can bend over the wall, you can fold it over ki'ilu, and as if it, it's now facing downwards, and you'll combine that with good achis to say that the wall then goes all the way down to the water, to say that you can draw water you put a bucket through the hole down to the water and draw water through the hole that way. You guys got it? Right? And basically, we're doing all sorts of imaginary kinds of things, right? The first imaginary thing that we're doing is that we're viewing it as if this platform was folded over and now you have a downward wall that's 10 tefachim downwards on all four sides, because you fold it over. We view it as though you fold it over all four sides. And then we view it as though the wall goes all the way down to the water. So we combine two halachas, right? One called kof and one called gud, to say that basically there's waters that when you drop the bucket through the hole in the middle of the balcony, you're going to be essentially drawing water from Rishus HaYachid, because the pail, the bucket, is going to be drawing water from underneath the balcony, which is considered like it's enclosed by four walls of 10 tefachim each. Amalei Abaye. So now Abaye says to Rabba, who says that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Hanania ben Akavya would necessarily agree? Vidil Maloi, maybe that's not the case. Ad kan lokam Rabbi Yehuda hasam, elo de amar gud achis mechitzta. The reason why Rabbi Yehuda says that when it comes to a pit with a wall going over it, that we could say that it's as though the pit is divided in half, is because we could say gud achis, right? And that would work. That would be enough. Aval, kov vigud lo. But to combine gud achis with an additional feature, with an additional kula of kof, to view it as if we fold over the balcony, so that it's now not horizontal, rather it's vertical and it's a wall going downwards. We're not going to combine those two, right? Rabbi Yehuda would say that while you could say gud achis mechitzta, you can't say gud achis plus kof. V'ad kan lo ka'amar Reb Hanania ben Akavya hasam, and Reb Hanania ben Akavya also, he only says that you can do this interesting hack with gud and kof when it comes to this balcony, Ela b'yom shel Tiberia, because we're talking about where was this balcony over, what body of water? The Tiberias, the Sea of Galilee. Ho v'yeshla ognim v'ayarus v'karpefos makifososa, since there is a proper lip of the Galilee, and there are cities and all sorts of enclosed areas that are surrounding the Galilee. For that reason, we can consider it already to be somewhat closed, and therefore we can be more lenient and say that we could say both kof and gud. Aval, bishar meimis lo. But when it comes to other waters, such as this pit in the chatzer, maybe Hanania ben Akavya would not say that you could simply rely upon the wall that divides the chatzers. So we wanted to say that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Hanania ben Akavya agree that they're right, because they're both mekel when it comes to halachis of walls and water. But we end up saying that you can argue that they don't necessarily agree with one another. Chaver, let's go weiter. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, U'ledivrei Reb Hanania ben Akavya. Now, along the lines of Reb Hanania ben Akavya, ha'isa smucha lekosel b'pachis megimel tfachim, tzarich she'e orka dalet amis, v'rochba ech achar asar v'mashu. Okay, we're now going to give 3 examples of situations, kind of, I don't know, somewhat along the lines of Reb Hanania ben Akavya, right? Reb Hanania ben Akavya kind of opened up this, like, is it appropriate to say Pandora's box or something? But he kind of opened up this whole thing about like how you can bend walls and stuff in your mind. So we're going to apply that a shtickle more. And what we're saying right now is that, let's say you have a building and you have a balcony. Now, sticking out of the building are like, I don't know, these metal things that the balcony rests on. Now, the balcony is 3 tefachim away from the wall of the building, and you have to be careful that you don't fall down to the ground. So this balcony is less than 3 tefachim away from the building, and it doesn't have any walls around it, and it is 4 amos long, so that's of course 24 tefachim long, and there's water underneath. So what we're saying is, and there's another detail, which is that the width of this balcony is 11 tefachim and a little bit, okay? Now that we have all of these details lined up, right? So the length of it, like along the building, is 24 tefachim, its width is 11 and a little bit, and it's also a little bit less than 3 tefachim from the building. So now, if you want to be able to draw water from this balcony, so what you'll do is right in the middle of the balcony, you will cut out a cutout of 4 tefachim long and just a little bit more than 1 tefach in width. And by doing this, you're going to now have that cutout area is 4 tefachim, right? Because the balcony itself is a little bit less than 3 tefachim from the wall. And now in the middle of it, you're cutting out an area 4 tefachim long, and also its width is a little bit more than 1 tefach, i.e. this square thing where it's cut out is 4 tefachim away from the wall. So you can no longer say lavud. And so this square is going to be considered a hole. Now, the rest of the balcony, because it's within less than 3 tefachim from the wall, is going to be considered like it's connected to the wall. And because, on the other side of the cutout of the square, there's another 10, right? You said it's 11 and a little bit, right? So there's still another, in its width, there's another 10 tefachim behind it until the edge of the balcony. And on either side, because it's 24 tefachim long, so on either side there's also 10 tefachim. So basically, what you have is you have the wall of the building, you have this square that's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim of space, you then have 10 tefachim on all the other 3 sides. So you can view it as if it's bent, as if we fold them over, and we'll say good achis, and you can drop your pail through that square. Exciting times, chevra. So, let's read that again. Amar Abaye hat gesagt, u'diver Reb Chanani ben Akavya. So according to Reb Chanani ben Akavya, haisa smucha lekaisel bepachis migimel tefachim. So if you have this balcony that is a little bit less than 3 tefachim away from the wall, so you need that its length should be 4 amas, which is 24 tefachim. V'rochba achadasar v'mashu, and its width is 11 and a little bit. And kacha, you're gonna have, you can bend it around the square that you'll etch out in the middle, and you'll have 10 walls of 10 tefachim on all sides. Now, what about this next case? Now, in this next case, you have a wall of a building, and then you have another wall that is opposite it, and you want to kind of enclose an area to be a rishus hayachid, right? So you have a wall of a building. Now, right opposite it, what was it? 4 tefachim away. Yeah, exactly. Right opposite it, 4 tefachim away, you have a wall, and this wall is 10 tefachim tall. Okay, so it says the Gemara, right? Haisa zikufa. If this wall was standing up, gova asar tefachim. So you need that its height should be 10 tefachim tall. V'rochba, and its width is vav tefachim v'shnei mashahuyin, 6 tefachim and 2 mashahuyin, right? So basically, like this. So what you have is the wall of the building is one wall. Then this wall that's opposite it is 10 tefachim tall, and it's 6 tefachim wide. And because it's 6 tefachim wide, so you could take the middle 4 tefachim, and that's like a 4 tefach wide wall. And then the 1 and a little bit of tefachim on either side, you can view it as though they're bent over towards the wall. And then, because you then are bending over 1 and a little bit on either side, so each side that we're viewing as though they're bent over will now be within 3 tefachim of the building, and essentially using lavud and kof and bending stuff, so we could view it as though you have an area right now that is enclosed 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. Amr Rav Huna bar Rav Yoshua, says Rav Huna bar Rav Yoshua, takes it one step further. Haisa omedes bekaren zavis. What if we're talking about the corner of the building? Now, in this corner of the building, it's a corner, so there's already 2 walls built in. So tzarich she'gova yud tefachim. So you need that this wall that we want to build needs to be 10 tefachim tall, of course. V'rochba daled tefachim v'shnei mashahuyin. But its width only needs to be 4 tefachim and 2 mashahuyin, right? And then what 2 like little bits. So then what you could do is so what you could do is then you could position this wall, this thing, like, within 3 tefachim of one side, and then you could view it as if a little bit more than a tefach later you bend it towards the other direction, so that you create like two, like a bracket kind of thing, and you have one and a little bit tefach going to fill in the other 2 directions that are missing, the other 2 walls that are missing, and then it'll be and as long as you position it within 3 tefachim of the wall, you could say lavud, and then you'll have a space that is 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim and enclosed. But that which we learn in a brisa, Reb Chananya ben Akavya Omer, Gzuztu Ashiesh ba Dalad Amas Dalad Amas Chokik ba Dalad Al Dalad Mimale Hechim Mishkachasla. Well, if we're saying now that as long as it's within 3 tefachim of the wall, so then you don't need like all this extra space. We said that all you need is to be, let's say, 24 amas long and 11 amas wide. How come it would have to be 24 by 24? So, and 11 tefachim wide, 4 amas long and 11 tefachim wide. So the avida ki asisa. So the answer is because in Chananya ben Akavya's case, it's not talking about where it's connected to the wall. It's like standing on stilts of sorts in the middle of nowhere. So in that case, and it's over a body of water, so in that case you would it would need to be 24 tefachim by 24 tefachim. Okay. Alright, Chavenu Mishnah. Amas hamayim sheyoveres b'chatzer. So let's say you have a canal of water that is passing through a chatzer. Okay, so you have a chatzer, and in the middle there's like a stream that passes through. Sounds very beautiful. Ein memala neimenu b'Shabbos elim ken asula mechitza gavoa yud tefachim b'chniso v'yitzia. In order to be able to draw water from this canal on Shabbos, you need to make an additional wall as a heker, as a recognition of sorts, where it comes into the chatzar and where it leaves the chatzar. So even though we said kalu shekelu chacham b'mayim, that the chacham are meko when it comes to water, and we could say good achis, that the walls go down to create an area in the water. Nonetheless, in this case of the canal that goes through the chatzar, we want to make an additional heker, an additional thing that we'll notice, and therefore, and you should put these like additional walls where the canal comes into the chatzar and where it leaves the chatzar. Fine. Reb Yehuda Omer Kosel Shal Gaba Tidon Mishum Mechitza. Reb Yehuda says no, just the regular wall that's already there surrounding the chatzar would be considered enough. Reb Yehuda, and says Reb Yehuda Maise Be'ama Shel Evel, that there was a story with the canal that went through all the chatzars in this town called Evel. Sheimimala Mimena Al Pi Zakeinu B'Shabbos, that based on the expert opinions of the rabbis, they would fill up water on Shabbos from these canals, and it was no problem. Amrulo mipnei shelo haya b'kashir. So they said to Rabbi Yehuda, yeah, that in Avel, that's because the canal that was running through Avel wasn't 10 tefachim deep by 4 tefachim wide, and therefore, since it wasn't a proper shear, so that is why they were allowed to draw water from it. Taner, so says the Gemara, Taner Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Asula b'chnisa v'lo asula b'yitzia. If they made a wall by the entrance of the canal, where the canal came into the chatzar, but they didn't make a wall where the canal exited the chatzar, Asula b'yitzia v'lo asula b'chnisa. If they made a wall where the canal exited the chatzar, but not where it entered the chatzar, Ein mimalin imena b'Shabbos. So then you may not fill up from this canal on Shabbos, right? Meaning the Mishnah had said that in order to fill up from the canal, there would have to be a wall at the entrance and at the exit. If one of those walls is missing, so then you may not fill up from this canal on Shabbos. Unless they made a wall that's 10 tefachim tall, both by the entrance and by the exit. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kosel shal gaba tidon mishum mechitza, and of course Rabbi Yehuda says, no, ma pitom, the wall of the chatzar suffices. Rabbi Yehuda, and says Rabbi Yehuda, Ma'isa ba'amas hamayim shoysa ba'ame evel tzipori, that there's a story about the canal of water that went from Evel to Tzipori. And they would fill up water from this canal on Shabbos based on the ruling of the rabbis. Amrulo, they said to Rabbi Yehuda, Misham Raya, you're going to bring a proof from there. Because it did not have the requisite dimensions of a canal of 10 tfachim deep by 4 tfachim wide, and for that reason they were allowed to draw water from that canal. But a regular old canal, you would be unable to draw water from on Shabbos. Tanya Idach, we learn in another brisa, Amasamayim ha'overes beina chalonis. If you have water, I imagine it to be like Venice. I never went to Venice, Lamaisa, but kilu, water in the streets, right? So you can just take out a bucket and drop it out the window and fill up your water. Pachas migimel mishalshul dliu mimale, gimel ein mishalshul dliu mimale. So according to the Tanakame, so as long as it's less than 3. Now the Gemara is going to get into a discussion of what's less than 3. For now we're just going to say it. What's it? It is less than 3. As long as it is less than 3, so then you can lower your bucket into the water and fill it up. If it is more than 3, then you may not lower your bucket into the water and fill it up. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, says the holy Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, Pachas midalid mishalshel d'lu mamale, dalid in mishalshel d'lu mamale. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's cutoff is 4 tfachim. That if it is less than 4 tfachim, so then you can drop your pail out the window and fill up water. If it is more than 4 tfachim, so then you may not. Now, of course, this is reminiscent of the machlokas between the Chacham and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel when it comes to lavud. Right, the Chachamim say that the shear for lavud is based on less than or more than 3 tfachim, whereas Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is based on less than or more than 4 tfachim. We'll get there. Chevre b'mayaskinan. Here we go. So what is it? Right? What are we talking about? What is the thing that has to be less than 3 tfachim according to the Chachamim in order for you to be able to draw water from it? So gufa. Well, if we're talking about the water itself, that the water needs to be less than 3 tfachim. Okay, if the water is less than 3, the area where the water is less than 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim, so then, or maybe not necessarily by 3 tfachim, but less than 3 tfachim wide, so then you would be able to draw water from it, from this source of water. Ve'ela hadichiyasar Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. But what about the statement of Rav Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan? In Carmelis Pchusa Midalid, that a Carmelis, there's no such thing as a Carmelis that is less than 4 tfachim. In order for something to be considered a Carmelis, it would have to be 4 tfachim. Now, if it's less than 4 tfachim, then it's not a Carmelis. And if it's not a Carmelis, then there's nothing wrong with filling up water from it. But the Chachamim seem to be saying that the cutoff is 3. Now, if this is true, that the machlokas between Rav Shimon ben Gamliel and the Chachamim is talking about whether or not the water itself has a width of 3, so then how, right, and the Chachamim would be saying that that if the width of this canal is 3 tfachim, then you may not fill up water from it. Well, that would be problematic, meaning Rav Dimi says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that if it's less than 4 tfachim, it's not going to be considered a Carmelis. Well then, if that's true, Rabbi Yochanan, that less than 4 tfachim would not be a Carmelis, i.e. it's a makom p'tur, then how come the Chachamim are saying that you're not allowed to fill up water from it? So, right, so lema kitanai amar l'shmaite. Right, if we're saying that the machlokas in Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and the Chachamim is about the size of this source of water itself, well, then that would mean that when Rav Dimi says the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that if you have an area, if you have water that is less than 4 tfachim wide, it is not a Carmelis, well, it's a machlokas Tanaim, right? The fact of the matter is that would really only be the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. Chacham would say that already by 3 tfachim it's a Carmelis. So ela ba'agafe. So rather it's talking about the lip ulahachlif, and to go from one to the other. What does this mean? So rather we're saying that what the 3 tfachim or 4 tfachim, this machlokes in the Chacham and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, is about the lip of this canal. Okay, that the lip, kilu, you have water, and on the sides, it comes up. There's like some kind of side of it. So this lip itself, if it is less than 3 tfachim, the Chachamim say that you'd be allowed, right, lahachlif, right? You'd be allowed to take your bucket from within your house, which is a reshus hayachid, drop it out your window onto this lip of the canal, which is a makom p'tur. It's less than 3 tfachim, it's makom p'tur. And there's a shaila about, I thought a makom p'tur is less than 4 tfachim. don't worry about it. There are ways you can answer that. What we're focusing on right now is this loophole, right? The fact that we're saying that as long as this lip is less than 3 tefachim, you'd be allowed to take your bucket from inside your house, outside your window, onto this lip, which is a makom p'tur. From the lip, which is a makom p'tur, you'd then be allowed to put it into the water, to this canal, which is a carmelis, because it's wider than 4 tefachim, it's a carmelis. And because by way of this lip, you'd be able to put your pail from your rishus hayachid into this makom p'tur, and then from the makom p'tur into the carmelis. Now, we're going to ask a kasha on that, right? But one second, we've seen before a number of times that when Rav Dimi came, he said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, that if you're in Rishus Rabbim and there, or Rishus HaYachid, right, but in between Rishus Rabbim and Rishus HaYachid, there's a place that is not 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. Mutter livnei Rishus HaYachid, livnei Rishus Rabbim l'chatef olav, that both the people in the Rishus HaYachid and the people in Rishus Rabbim would be allowed to place items on this area that's less than 4 tefachim. Uvilvad shelo yachlifu, as long as they don't use it as a loophole to be able to take things from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabbim, to say, well, I'm just going to take this thing from Rishus HaYachid, put it on this Makom P'tur, then from there, I'll take it from Makom P'tur into Rishus HaRabbim. That you would not be allowed to do. So, we see that even in places of Makom P'tur, you can't use that as a loophole to be able to go from one Rishus to the other. So, how can we say that you can, as long as the lip is less than 3 tefachim, you could take this bucket from inside your house, which is a Rishus HaYachid, put it outside your window onto this lip, which is a Makom P'tur, and from there to the water. So, Hasam Rishu is the Oraisa, Acha Rishu is the Abanan. Okay, so the Gemara wants to say, well, when Rabbi Yochanan said the name of Rav Dimi, that if it's less than 4 tefachim, you would not be allowed to go from Rishus HaYachid to the Makom P'tur to the Rishus HaRabbim. That is by Dafka Rishus HaRabbim, right? That's by Rishuyas de Oraisa, right? Such as Rishus HaRabbim and Rishus HaYachid. Here we're talking about a Carmelis. Carmelis is a Derabanan, right? And therefore, when it comes to transferring from Rishus HaYachid to a Carmelis, so then you can rely on, if it's going from the inside your house to a Makom P'tur, to the Carmelis, that would be acceptable. But one second. But we've seen recently that, and we're going to explain what it is in a second, but we've seen recently that Rabbi Yochanan would say that this applies to Derabanans as well, that you would be unable to use a Makom P'tur as a loophole to to take something from one Rishus to another Rishus, even if it's Derabanan. The Tanan, as we learned in our Mishnah, on Ayin Vav Mud Beis. Wow, already 11 days ago. Feels like it was maybe like 5 days ago. Kosel shebein beis hatzeirs, if you have a wall that's between 2 hatzeirs, gavoa yud tefachim v'rochav arba'a, and in this wall is 10 tefachim tall and it's 4 tefachim wide. Me'arvin shnayim ve'marvin echad, well, these 2 hatzeirs are going to be considered completely separate, and they have to make separate hatzeirs. They are unable to make a joint chatzer, since there is a proper wall between them. Hayu baroshu peres elu olin mikan ve'ochlin ve'elu olin mikan ve'ochlin. If there were fruits on top of this wall that is 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim wide, well, it's its own rishus. You can't take things up to there, but you can climb up there, and if there are fruits there already, you can eat the fruits on there. Nifrat sakosal ad eser amis ma'arvin shnayim v'motu ma'arvin echad. If there was an opening in the wall, so if the opening is less than 10 amis, so then it's just a regular old opening, Pesach, doorway, and if they want, they can make separate chatzers. If they want, they can join together in a joint chatzer. Mipnei shu kepesach, because it's like an entrance, an opening, doorway. Yoser mikan, but if the opening would be wider than 10 amis, ma'arvin echad ve'ma'arvin shnayim, well then they have to make one eruv together, because the opening is too big. It's not considered a Pesach, it's considered a pirza. It's too open, and it's considered one big chutzner, and they would have to all make an eruv together. And we ask, Ein bo arba amai, what if the wall is 10 tefachim tall between the 2 chutzers, right? There's the wall separating the 2 chutzers is 10 tefachim tall, but it's not 4 tefachim wide. Rab, says Rab, Avir beis v'shuyis sholetes bo v'lo yazis bo milo nima. So Rab says, well, in that case, since there's no width of 4 tefachim, well then the air of both chutzers kind of rules over this wall, and nobody can use it. You can't even move anything a hair's breadth. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, said Rabbi Yochanan, Elu ma'ilin mikan ve'ochlin, ve'elu ma'ilin mikan ve'ochlin. And whereas Rabbi Yochanan says that no, in this case it's a makom p'tur. You could bring things from both hatzeirs onto the top of the wall, right? It's a makom p'tur. I could take things from, chatzer A and put it on top of the wall, or I could take things from chatzer B and put it on top of the wall because it's a makom p'tur. But as Rabbi Yochanan the time, and the Gemara continued over there, and it said that Rabbi Yochanan goes according to his reasoning. The chiyasa Rav Dimi, Rabbi Yochanan, that when Rav Dimi came, he said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, makom she'ein bo arba al arba, that if you have an area that is less than 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, muter livnei rishus harabim v'livnei rishus hayachid l'chativ olav. So it's permitted for the people in rishus harabim and rishus hayachid to put things on top of this area that's less than 4 by 4. Uvilvad shelo yachlifu, and that's the important part. And as long as they don't transfer things from rishus harabim to rishus hayachid, and we're bringing this in the context of the chatzer. Right, meaning we're bringing that statement of Rabbi Yochanan that when you have Rishus Harabim and Rishus Hayachid and there's an area in the middle that's less than 4 by 4, both Rishuyas can put things on top of it as long as they don't go from the Rishus Harabim to the Rishus Hayachid by way of this makom p'tur and using it as a loophole. That wouldn't be allowed. But and we're saying that the same thing applies to when you have 2 chatzers and dividing and separating the 2 chatzers is a wall that's 10 tfachim tall but it's less than 4 tfachim wide. So in that case, you'd be allowed to bring things from each chutzner on top of it, but you would be unable to take things from one chutzner, put it on top of the wall, and then use that as a loophole to get to the other chutzner. That would be not allowed. So what do we see? So we see that even by reshuyas derabbanan, such as by these hatzeirs, still you would be unable to use this loophole of going from one chutzner onto the makom p'tur, the top of the wall, which is makom p'tur, to the next chutzner. That would not be allowed. And that's a reshuyas derabbanan. So therefore, getting back to our example of when you have the bucket that's in your house, which is a rishus hayachid, and you want to take the bucket and put it on the lip of this canal, which is less than 3 tfachim, so it's a makom p'tur, and you want to take it from the lip into the canal itself, which is a karmelis, which is derabanan, mistam, Rabbi Yochanan would say that that's not allowed, just like he says that it's not allowed by the chatzers. So the Gemara answers, ahi ze'iri amra. So the Gemara answers that whole thing with the 2 chatzers, and Rabbi Yochanan says that you wouldn't be allowed to go from one chatzer to the other by way of the makom p'tur. That is Ze'iri's opinion. That's Ze'iri's opinion. But Rav Dimi would say that you would be allowed by derabbanans to go from the rishus hayachid by way of the makom p'tur into the karmelis. With Ze'iri kasha, but according to Ze'iri, who says that you're not allowed to go by way of the makom p'tur by reshuyas derabbanan, what does he do with this brisa, where we seem to be saying that you are allowed to take a bucket from the house by way of the lip into the karmelis? So, Tanoi, where am I? I skipped. So Ze'iri mukim la ba'amas hamayim gufa. So Ze'iri, who says that you're not allowed to go by derabbanans from one rishus to another rishus by way of makom p'tur. So he says that what we're talking about is actually the water itself, the canal itself is less than 3 tfachim. Right? The canal itself is less than 3 tfachim, and therefore it doesn't have the shear, and that's why you'd be allowed to fill up water from it. Now, Rav Dimi Tanohi, and he says that, and what about the initial statement of Rav Dimi, which was that if it's less than 4 tfachim, it would not be considered a karmelis, and yet the rabbis over here are saying that if it's 3 tfachim already, it would be a karmelis. This water would be a karmelis, and you would be unable to fill up water. So you're going to have to say that it's a machlokas tanoim, right? That when Rav Dimi says that if it's less than 4 tfachim, then this water would not be considered a karmelis. That's Dafka Reb Shimon Gamliel's opinion, but the Chacham would say that by this water, 3 tfachim already would make it a karmelis. Okay. V'tavi kichore karmelis. But one second. We had learned in Masechta Shabbos, all the way at the beginning, like many moons ago, I guess 7 or 8 moons ago, that when you have a Rishus Harabim, and there's like walls by the Rishus Harabim, and there's like a little, like cutout in the wall, that is not 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim, and you throw something and it lands in that thing. We don't consider it as if it landed in makom p'tur. We consider it what's called chorei rishus harabim, right? Holes in the side of rishus harabim, and it's also considered rishus harabim. So why don't we consider this canal, which is less than 3 tfachim, to be like this chorei karmelis, right? Because it is connected to a larger canal at some point. And why don't we say it's considered like the sides of this canal, and it should be considered like the canal itself, which is a carmelis, and that shouldn't be allowed. So Abaye bar Avin, Reb Chanina bar Avin, the Amir Tavayu, that both Abaye bar Avin and Reb Chanina bar Avin say, Ein chorin the carmelis, there's no concept of sides of a carmelis. That concept doesn't exist. And as long as this area beneath your window is less than 3 tfachim wide, so you'll be able to fill up water according to Zeiri. Rav Ashi Amar says, Rav Ashi, afilu tema yesh chorin the carmelis, even if you want to argue that there is a concept of these sides of carmelis, this concept of chore, carmelis or chore, rishus harabim, that would only be when this hole that we're talking about is right next to the space that we're talking about, right? So meaning chore rishus harabim, we're talking about walls that are part of rishus harabim. Where chore carmelis would be, for example, if you have an area that is larger than a beis ha'asayim and shelo ukaf l'dira, and there are walls around it, and there's like a hole in the wall, like this area in the wall. So that's also smucha. But over here we're talking about this carmelis that is like, far away, this like water that's kind of far away from the main water area of the carmelis, so that wouldn't be considered chore carmelis. Ravina Amar, now says Ravina, going back to the very beginning, so Ravina gives gives an additional pshat to what we're talking about over here, right? So we had seen whether we're talking about the lip of the of this canal, or maybe we're talking about the body of water itself. Says Ravina, the 3 tfachim and 4 tfachim that we're talking about is actually that you had built walls at the beginning and end of the of this canal where it entered the chatzer, and the wall that you had built, it wasn't fully closed. There was space that the water can get through. So according to the Chachamim, as long as the space in the middle of the wall where the water goes through is less than 3 tfachim, so we can consider it as if it's closed, because they say that lavud is the cutoff is 3 tfachim, whereas Reb Shimon Gamliel says that the cutoff by lavud is 4 tfachim, and therefore says that the space in the wall can be up to 4 tfachim, right? So Ravina Amar could go into Avadla Nipake Apuma. It's talking about where they made these walls by the entrance and exit of where the canal came into the Chatzar. And the rabbis go according to their reasoning that the cutoff by lavud is 3 tfachim, and Reb Shimon Gamliel goes according to his reasoning that the cutoff by lavud is 4 tfachim. Chever, we've got a new Mishnah. Chever, this is going to sound familiar. If you have a balcony that is above water, you may not fill up water from this balcony from the water below on Shabbos. Unless you make a wall that is 10 tfachim tall, whether this wall is above the balcony, so that you can't fall over, or whether it's below the balcony. It won't really protect you from falling over, but it will allow you to fill up water, since we'll say in both cases good achis, that the wall goes all the way down to the water. And similarly, if you have 2 platforms, you have 2 balconies, one above the other, asula elyona, asula tachtona, if they put a hole in the floor of and also a wall on the upper balcony, but not the lower balcony, both of them are asur until they make an eruv together. We've seen this numerous times over the past few days, right? These balconies are not one directly above the other, they're kind of off to the side. Masnisin zelo Chananya ben Akavya. Let's say that our Mishnah is not like Chananya ben Akavya. The Tanya, as we learn in the Brisa, Chananya ben Akavya Omer says, Chananya ben Akavya gzuztira sheyesh ba arba al arba amis, that if you have this balcony that is 4 amis by 4 amis, chokek ba arba al arba umimale, so then you can make a square in the middle of it that is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. You can then fill up water underneath it. Whereas over here we're saying that you have to actually build proper walls. We can't just imagine it as if we bend over the walls. So Amr Reb Yochanan says, Reb Yochanan Mishum Reb Yossi ben Zimmer lo hiti Reb Chananya ben Akavya ella biyama shel Tiberia. No, Reb Chananya ben Akavya, he was only talking about Tiberia, the Sea of Galilee. Hoel v'yeshla ognim v'yaris v'karpefos mikifos osav al b'shar meimos lo. He only says that by the Sea of Galilee because it has lips, it's got like an edge around it and also buildings around it. So therefore, you can be makel there and say that we'll kof as if we'll bend over the walls, but over here but he doesn't say that by every body of water. That was the Pei Zayin of Masechta Ayruvin. Let's recap some of the things that we learned. So interesting, different good achis configurations that involve bending over walls and extending them and stuff. A canal of water that passes through a chatzer. So according to the Chacham, you have to put an additional wall as a heker, as a sign, both at the begin where the canal enters the chatzer as well as where it exits the chatzer. Rabbi Yehuda says that the walls of the chatzer would suffice. And then we got into this discussion about what if you have a body of water outside of your window. Can you take a bucket, chuck it out the window, and fill up some water? So the Chachamim say, well, yes, if it is less than 3 tvachim, but if it is more than 3 tvachim, then no. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said, if it is less than 4 tvachim, then you could fill up your water. But if it is more than 4 tvachim, then you cannot fill up your water. And the question is, what is it? So the first way that we wanted to explain it was that it's talking about first we want to say that it's talking about the body of water itself. Right, that if it's less than 3 tvachim, you can fill up water. If it's more than 3 tvachim, then you cannot, according to the Chachamim. The problem with that is that Rabbi Yochanan, who's an Amora, said that a carmelis, when it comes to water, is defined by 4 tvachim. If it's more than 4 tvachim, it's a carmelis. If it's less, then it's not. Now, if we're talking about the body of water itself, well, then it would sound like the Chachamim actually argue on Rabbi Yochanan, which isn't very good for Rabbi Yochanan. So in order for Rabbi Yochanan to make sense, we can't say it's talking about the water itself. Rather, it's talking about the lip. That it's talking about the lip of the canal, and we're saying that if the lip is less than 3 tvachim, so according to Chacham, you can take your bucket, put your pail, and put it from the lip, and then from the lip, put it on the lip, which is a makom tur, and from there you can go into the carmelis. Zeiri, however, held like the first way, and he says it's a machlokes when it comes to that Rabbi Yochanan's opinion about the 4 tvachim by carmelis is in fact a machlokas, and the Chacham argue on him. Ravina says that what we're talking about is the wall for the canal at the entrance of the chatzer and the exit of the chatzer. If there's an opening in the wall for the water to get through, so Chacham say that the cutoff is 3 tvachim because they say that lavud it's an issue of lavud, which is 3 tvachim, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says we're talking about 4 tvachim because lavud is governed by 4 tvachim. We talked about chorei carmelis. Right? Can we view like the sides like of a carmelis as if they're part of the carmelis? Abai bar Avin, Reb Chanina bar Avin said no, there's no such concept. Rav Ashi says that there is a concept, but only when it's close. But if it's far away like here, then we don't say it. And then we got to a new mission at the end, which talked about the balconies that we've been discussing recently that are over bodies of water. Peace.